This is the Mental Mettle Podcast, where we explore how to forge mental toughness and resilience in every aspect of life. Welcome, I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann. I'm an ICF certified professional coach with a background as a teacher, basketball coach, and athletic director. But my journey took a dramatic turn in 2020 when I survived both cancer and a stroke. Those experiences shaped my mission to help others grow stronger in every facet of life. Today, I work with athletes, coaches, educators, and anyone who believes that positive mental health is both achievable and a personal responsibility. This podcast is dedicated to helping listeners develop a positive version of toughness, one rooted in resilience, focus, and growth. Whether you're looking to excel on the field, in the classroom, or in life, this is your space to learn, grow, and take action. Join me on this journey, and together, let's forge your mettle.
Okay, so I have good news and I have bad news about today's episode. The good news is that I have on the show, the Mental Mettle Podcast here, which is all about helping others learn how to attack their sport in a different way. And today's guest is a great person to learn from in that he is one of the most decorated coaches in Illinois high school football history. Been to 7 state championship games, won 2 of them, has an overall record of 268 wins and only 75 losses. The 11th most in any one school. So he knows how to, build a culture in one area. And now Pat Ryan is works for the University of Illinois, and he's the director of Illinois high school relations. So that's the good news. Just the quality of guests that I have here, and just the depth of knowledge and experience that Pat brings to the show is probably unmatched in guests. And I've had some really good guests. So just phenomenal guest. That's the good news. The bad news is, and I say it like this, it's not real bad news, but I told a friend of mine, a football coach, that I was getting Pat on the show, and he was like, well, let's go. Let's hurry up, get it on there. Ask him this, because I want to learn this. I want to do this. And the bad news is, all the things that Pat is going to say here are things that have already been said on the show, things that we already kind of know. It's nothing groundbreaking. No offense to Pat whatsoever, but it's just, I think his commitment to these things and his ability to build the relationships and do them in the absolute best way possible. We don't get into, there's nothing new in this. It's just Pat talking about how to build relationships and how that's so important and should be first over schemes, and how you have to love the kids and meet the kids where they're at and actually understand that each kid is a little bit different, and understanding them, and that you can't coach them all the same way. And that is something I've talked about on this show a lot. And then just the idea of, as we say in the title, you're never done learning, and being humble, picking up new ideas and keep changing stuff, and leading on your staff, and all of these things, just relationships, meeting kids, being humble. Now, it's all things that we've talked about on the show, but again, I do think the one thing that you can pick up from Pat here is that he's committed to those things, and he was from the beginning, and he keeps doing these things, and that's how he started to build things. He had a lot of help, and Pat will say that he had good admins, and he was in a really good situation, good family, good wife, and all these things. But he did a lot of these things well, and he did a lot of these things right, and is pretty committed to it, and he has a lot of the success. So I do think the one thing, more than one thing, but the main thing you can get from this is that Pat did it the right way, my version of the right way, the mental mettle right way, and had enormous success, and continues to have success because he's still working for Illinois, Fighting Illini, and working as a director of high school relations and he's having a lot of success at getting homegrown talent coming into play for Illinois as that program is being built. So that is again, it's not bad news, but if you were looking for this like groundbreaking formula that, I got to rechange everything. Well, maybe you do. Maybe you listen to this and you're like, I'm not doing any of these things and I'm really struggling. I'm not enjoying the way I'm coaching and I'm not enjoying the results. Well, then maybe it is groundbreaking to you. But I guess like it doesn't feel it to me because I've been talking about this on this show for a while. So obviously for me, it's a really good thing because it's just building on the idea that I believe in. So it's just a phenomenal. If you've met Pat at all, if you've talked to Pat, you have no problem understanding that we run a little bit long in this episode, but I don't dare cut anything out. Pat is just fantastic, and it's a great conversation. So enjoy this conversation with Hall of Fame Illinois football coach and current Illini, Pat Ryan.
Welcome to Mental Mettle Coaching, where our mission is to help you learn to thrive in the face of adversity, not just survive it. We are passionate about empowering you to live, play, and work with a resilient and spirited mindset. Hi, I'm Matt Thomann. I'm an ICF professional coach and keynote speaker. My background as an athlete, basketball coach, teacher, and school administrator has equipped me with the insights that resonate deeply with the schools, teams, athletes, and coaches I work with. However, it's my personal journey through anxiety, cancer, and an ischemic stroke in 2020 that truly brings authenticity to my presentations. While learning to speak and write again, I also pursued and earned my ICF coaching certification. Now the practices I embrace are more than theoretical concepts. They're a way of life. Developing a positive mindset is within reach for all, but it requires self-awareness and the repetition of intentional activities. At Mental Mettle Coaching, we'll guide you, your staff, and your students on this transformative journey. Together, let's forge your mettle. All right, welcome back. The Mental Mettle Podcast, here with your host, Coach Matt Thomann. I'm here with my guest today, Pat Ryan. Pat Ryan is now the director of Illinois at University of Illinois, the director of high school relations. Coach, we're going to get into a lot of your background, what you've done. I've got a lot of questions about your time at Metamora and your coaching career and stuff like that. But let's start with this. What does a director of high school relations do at a Big Ten school?
Well, it's a few hats. It really is, and they're all their own adventure. But obviously, the first is to connect with high school coaches. That's a priority for me. That's a weekly venture, and building relationships with the coaches and the recruiting process. We feel that it's important to engage the coach and make sure they know what's going on with their kids. I don't know what it's like anywhere else because I was a high school coach other than that. So. But that's an approach, and it's allowed me to keep relationships that I've had, build relationships with guys that you had heard about that were great coaches, and now you got a reason to call them and take some time and talk to them and have some purpose behind it. The other part of it is recruiting the athletes. I don't get on the road very often. Most of mine is just through film evaluation, and then having the opportunity to invite them here and get to know them when they come on campus, whether it's we have spring ball coming up, so we'll have a lot of guys through once we get done with this current dead period, and evaluating film and working with our basically our personnel group and our recruiting group, which is it's kind of ongoing. I mean, the recruiting literally never stops.
Well, it's especially now you got to as they say, re-recruit your own kids every year. Right. It never stops.
Relationships don't stop. That's exactly right. And to your point, relationships don't stop regardless of whether they are initially here or not. I mean, I think that's been the neat thing is that, we're not in the habit of building or burning bridges. Relationships are important. And that all starts with Coach Bielema. He's relationship driven. So, that's something to think about. And the trust factor is very high here.
Well, that's just it, right? Like I've talked to some coaches before and they're like, well, we just keep a relationship because we may not get them out of high school, but it may not work out. And then you can't burn that bridge because they may be back to you by the time they're a junior when they're really making an impact anyway.
Well, and that's exactly right. But also along with that, Matt, too, is like, that's kind of the right thing to do, right? I mean,
Of course it is, right?
You put your best foot forward, and occasionally somebody will decide initially to go another direction. And, I kind of equate that to me dating in high school. I had a lot of no's, and I kept asking. I hung in there, and then I married an All-American. So it was it all worked out. So
it all works out.
But seriously, just getting to know people and for the parents, like I'm older, like I see it through the parents' eyes a lot now, and probably to a certain degree, grandparents' eyes as well.
Yeah.
And I that's a little bit of niche. I'm still the oldest guy in the building, and I try to use a little bit of that to understand the perspective of the high school coach, as he's got a great player getting recognition in this world. It can be very time consuming for these guys, and the fact that there is an expectation now for high school coaches to promote their kids more so than there's ever been. I mean, in the old days, you sent the films, right? And some of those VHS tapes were a little cloudy, and about halfway through, the guy recruiting them figured out who they were looking at and all that goes with that. But no, it's been really good. And I think when Coach came here that first year in 21, he had a clear message of how we were going to recruit the state. And the thing that makes me most proud is that message has never changed. And our relationships in the state of Illinois, we've had a lot of help from a lot of coaches because they see how we're doing it and what we're trying to do. And, that's really important.
Well, when you're talking about relationships and you mentioned having that relationship and going back and talking to coaches that you coached against, it had to be an integral part that you didn't burn those bridges either, right?
Yeah, you're only enemies once a year,
Well, that's what I mean, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a fraternity. And when I was young, we had a local association, a Peoria Area Association, and then I got involved with the state association, which is a big part of why I had the opportunity for this position. But both of those were invaluable, building those relationships. And you know what? Coaches need to lean on each other, and you need to hear from the old guys when you're young that your problems aren't unique. And so that I also feel like that's part of the job is that, just let the coaches talk a little bit about what they're experiencing, and you can learn a lot if you listen. And I would say this job has truly made me a better listener, in opposed to, there's times to express what we're trying to do, but sometimes if you listen, you get a lot more information. And once they see that you're going to take the time to really try to understand what they're doing and who they are, it's a big deal.
Yeah. And I found that even the really good coaches that I know, I never worked with and talked with a lot of Hall of Fame level coaches like yourself, that they don't, yes, they're there to help the younger coaches and do stuff, but they listen to the younger coaches as well, knowing that they don't know everything, and that youth can give me an insight that I didn't know before. And I just early in my coaching career ran into a guy that I know was at Eureka for a long time, Tim Meese, coach basketball, Tim, and he's still that way. He doesn't even coach anymore. And he is always listening to somebody else, to what he can pull from it. And I just love that. I think that's how you continue to be successful.
Without a doubt. And again, I mean, speaking of Tim, when my brother Joe was at Eureka coaching football, when Tim was a basketball coach, and he learned a lot. He leaned on him. So to your point, I mean, there's something to be learned, and also for the older guys to look at new concepts. I mean, who you are as a coach and what your foundation is, usually you got to have that to be successful. But I think every good coach is always trying to do it better. And including our head coach, Brett Bielema, a couple of years ago, sat in a punt return session because there was something that he wanted to try to solve. And so you're never done learning in this game. I think when in coaching, and teaching, if you ever think you got it all figured out, that's not a good sign.
It's not. Well, you're about to find out, right? Somebody will put something in front of you didn't really think of, and that happens. So as that director of high school relations for the state of Illinois, and it being a point of emphasis for Coach B and the state? Like, so you've been at it, like you said, 21. It's been a few years. What's the progress you're seeing in that, and what's the change you see in that? Obviously, you have kids that aren't from Illinois, but you're making it a point. What do you see that in the program? How does that affect just the culture of the program?
Well, I think that we have grown in that time, and I think that what we've done here is very visible, the progress that has been made. So I think that kids are more inclined, in-state kids are more inclined to come see what's going on. I mean, obviously they've seen the success we've had and how it's grown. And, also we've had several kids that they can reach out to that have been here or know somebody that's part of our program and are getting the right message. So from that standpoint, I think, it's 102 counties and we want them to all feel it. But I think that kids do want to come here and check it out. And ideally, that takes the coaches component too, right, Matt? Because when the coaches in the state of Illinois say to a kid, and it's, as a high school coach, I never wanted to tell a kid, hey, this is where you should go. I had some ideas, but if you tell a kid that and he doesn't, that's really not a lane that I ever felt comfortable getting into. But my point is that these coaches are seeing what we're doing and they're encouraging kids, go check out Illinois, go see what they're about. And those relationships, they become really fruitful because we feel like if we can get kids here and get around us and see how we operate, not just one day, you can roll out the carpet and everybody's got facilities. We have a beautiful facility. They can go to 100 of those. But what does it feel like when they walk in the door and if they come back, is there some consistency? So, one of my goals is the biggest thing that can happen with the first time visit is there's a second visit.
Yeah.
That tells you something, especially when mom doesn't come the first time and mom comes the second time. That usually means things are starting to progress a little bit.
Well, as we know, that matters. If you don't have mom in the door, like you probably haven't made a lot of progress yet.
Yes, right. The decision-making process has got a ways to go. I know that.
It really does. Do you so when you talk about that, making sure it is a noticeable culture that is beyond the facilities, how intentional is that? Meaning that, is that something that you guys talk about, think about, that we have to make sure this happens? And then how do you make sure that happens? If that makes sense.
Yeah, great question. I don't think you can force it. I mean, you can have all the meetings you want, but people know, one thing, people generally know how a situation feels. And that all starts with the head coach, I think, Matt. What's his message and how interactive is he? He's very involved in our recruiting. He wants to get to know people because he has built a roster here of good kids, tough, smart, dependable kids. And he likes to get around kids. And I'm not speaking on his behalf, but it's important that they do fit, the guys in our locker room, regardless of how talented they are. Now, you got to have good players. I get that, but they got to fit too, right? So that message is clear and how we treat people. I tell you what, it's universal in this building. It doesn't matter if it's nutrition, it's strength. Everybody kind of has that feel of they're important. They're important to the head football coach, and we're important to each other. And that's the message, is everybody has a job to do here or they wouldn't be here. And there's a lot of respect for, I don't know exactly what everybody in this building does, but it sure seems like people are putting in a lot of time. And our people they'll take a minute to talk to you. I think that's important. On recruiting days, we don't set it up. Guys will walk by, they'll introduce themselves. I remember when we first got here, guys like Chase Brown took the time. They didn't know they were getting, they were seniors. They took the time when they would see people in the building that you're recruiting. That sends a message, and it was very genuine. I didn't ask Chase to stop. He's a really busy guy, and that last year he was getting so much attention. Those are things that you appreciate, but I think that mentality starts with the head coach. If that's not his message, then and it really is. It's essentially everybody in our building feels that way, and that's what makes it fun for me. I mean, being a small town guy, I don't know any other environment, so I would struggle if it was was corporate. I don't even know how to put my ties in.
No, I get that. I love the idea that it's intentional, but it's not forced. And those two together are well, it's not. It doesn't happen overnight either. It has to be it has to be something that's built over time that you feel. Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness, using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Mettle Coaching. Time that you feel, I'll just straight and tell you that, like, because I came up to one game this year with my nephew to the USC game, and and my brother Andy said, "Hey, we'll probably get a chance to meet Coach B." And of course, I met you that day, and I didn't run into Coach B until after the game. Of course, after that, it was a big game and a win. But I just met the guy. This is the first time I met him, and the first thing I do is get a big hug, and I'm like, it wasn't. Like I said, it wasn't forced. It wasn't corporate. You could just be like, oh, now I get it. I understand. I've just a little bit of glimpse in it, and you can feel it.
Yeah. And it's the same every day,
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Same every day. And, that truthful. And sometimes as a head coach, you gotta tell guys for them to move forward. They got to hear things that they need to hear. But it's for lack of a better term, tough love. He cares about kids. He cares about people in this building, whether it was me or anybody individually in this building that needed some accommodations for a few days because of something family or anything like that. You don't go in like, how's this going to go? Without question, he gets it. He gets the big picture. And again, I think that's important. But yeah, and I would like to think that you felt that welcomed every time you came back.
Yeah. I can't see it. It wasn't faked and it wasn't corporate. So I can't imagine how it would be any different. No, it's easier when you win a big game.
Yeah.
That's it always helps. Let's be honest.
The mood. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
He's going to be the same guy on Monday.
Yeah.
Regardless. Like,
yeah,
that's part of it too, but because he's been around a while and he's been very, very successful, and he's, you do when you're in this business, you coach, there's some games you maybe shouldn't have gotten. There's some games you should have. And all that's part of it. But the level of consistency and how you build your program, that's what defines you over the long term.
So let's shift gears and go backwards a little bit, because we're talking about your time at Illinois. But I got a lot of high school football coaches that listen to this, and they're going to be mad at me if I don't start asking you questions about the culture you built at Metamora, at probably one of the more successful downstate football programs in a long time. You guys had a phenomenal run for, what is it, like, did you have 10 wins for 15 years in a row or something like that? Like, that's,
we had a pretty good stretch, and
in a really good conference. It wasn't like you were just beating.
No, there were
nobodies.
We coached against. I tell you what, we definitely had to work at it. We coached against some really, really good coaches and some really good programs, and throughout the state. But we were fortunate that we had good buy-in with the kids, and more importantly, their families. And I had a very, very strong football staff when I first started. Our defensive coordinator was Tom Gunther, who could have been the head coach, but didn't want to be a head coach. But Tom was initially in 1990. He told me he was going to stay 3 years, and he stayed through the 2007 state championship. So,
well,
we were quadruple overtime or something like that. But
yeah,
built a great relationship. And then as the young guys started coming in, guys that had played for me on the staff, guys that were willing to put the time in that it takes, and their families got it. And honestly, Matt, I was just really fortunate. Sometimes in life, it's a matter of being in the right place at the right time. And when you realize you're surrounded by good families, good kids, good coaches, and an administration that let us coach, there was trust there that, quite frankly, I was very fortunate, and I get it now. And you don't, when you're going through it, like you said, those years where we were on a pretty good roll, you don't really have much of a timeline to look back, because it's always about what's next. And until I retired and I look back and I thought, man, I didn't thank people enough. I tried, but you realize how good of an opportunity it was for me and my family. So I'm forever grateful that I had that opportunity.
I can't agree with you more. I think that it's fantastic. And you're talking about, you were in a phenomenal situation, the time and the place and all this, and you had these, and I'm agreeing with all that, Coach, but I think there's a lot of coaches that get in those situations and don't have the success you did. So I love that you're being humble here, but I want to get, like, when you talk about the kids bought in and the families bought in and you had the trust of the administration and stuff, talk to me about those first few years as you're building that in. Like, what was your intentionality? What was your, like, how did you get the culture? It worked out. You had help. You had so many people to help, but what were you intentional about building in your culture to make sure that you had that?
Well, first of all, I think for me, I knew I had to be the hardest working person in the building. If I'm not totally committed, honestly, I think I have spent more time in a weight room as much as anybody. Now, if you look at me physically, it doesn't look like it, but I, as an observer more than a participant,
I got you.
But you got to be willing to do all that, and because I wasn't a really good delegator at the beginning, and I was able to do that over time. But I think that was part of it. And then you just got to get out and keep learning. Try to find who it is. I can't be any other coach. I had great coaches. My high school coach, John Helmick, Hall of Famer, great coach. We are not the same person. If I would have tried to emulate how he coached, it would have never worked. You got to be yourself and take what you've learned and get as organized as you can. One of the things I struggled with early, I didn't do a very good job of coaching my coaches. I'd be disappointed in how things were getting taught, but you gotta coach your coaches too. And so I learned a lot there. And then I think you've got to make it so that you're a better coach when you have the best. Every school's got athletes. Now, are they participating in your program, or are they not participating?
That's a big issue. Yeah,
it's a huge, and I've seen it both ways, and I've been involved in it both ways. But for us, a big turning point, quite frankly, is we had a young man by the name of Andy Reeb. And I don't know if you remember, Paul Reeb was a coach at Metamora Grade School, basketball coach, coach baseball, coach track. He was the coach at Metamora Grade School. He wasn't the only coach, but Coach Reeb was like that first guy that I wanted to emulate. Like what he said, he could have said, go home and stand on your head every night. You'll make more free throws. I'd have done it. That's the kind of influence he had in my life. So, move forward all these years. Andy plays basketball in junior high like a bull in the china closet. I mean, he's just a physical kid, and he's a good basketball player, really good baseball player. In fact, he went on to play baseball at St. Francis. But I thought, man, if I can't get a kid like that who loves contact to try football, we're never going to turn the corner. And and I think because of my relationship with Coach Reeb, that he was willing to let Andy have a try, and Andy thrived. He loved it. And I guess my point is, when Andy came out for football, like it was just like that set the tone. Like everybody knew who he was, and he was as good athlete as there was in that class. And then it just worked out that way. And then you got it to the point where we had a kid move in by the name of Brad Herman, who ended up playing at Iowa. And he was an all-state tight end for arguably as good a player as I had in my team. Brad came in and he'd never played football before. His dad was from Illini Bluffs. They didn't have
Right.
football, and there was just such an excitement that Brad was kind of a character anyway. He goes, well, shoot, everybody else was doing it.
Might as
I
well.
thought maybe I'd give it a try, and the next thing you know, this kid's a phenomenal player, and so that was critical too. Now, not every guy that I would have loved seen play football played. And one of the biggest kids that went to Metamora High School, these guys would always say, you're always big, and every big kid must want to play football. One of the biggest kids that was there in my time at Metamora High School was in the band, and he never played a lick of football. I asked him once, and I knew that there was going to be no negotiating. His future was in music, and but he got on the football field every Friday night.
Well, there you go. Right. So I'm with you. Identifying the kids and getting them out there is a huge part, especially in football, because you need a lot of kids. What I think coaches would like to know, okay, Coach Ryan, like how do you convince them? Like how do you get them there? How do you keep them there?
Well, I think you're up front with them. And the best thing, a guy told me once, and this is very true. He said the best thing about a freshman football player is that he becomes a sophomore football player.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to get him in the door, and knew that we had pretty good structure. We tried to make it fun. It's not the funnest sport to practice. I mean, it's a little bit of a grind, very repetitious at times. So you got to find ways to mix it up. And then just being sincere and enthusiastic, and share the love of the game, and if they bought into what we were doing and we had some success, that helps too.
Sure.
I mean, you can do it all, but if you don't win it all, it gets harder and harder. And I owe too the junior football programs at that time were kind of late getting into it. When I first got there, they were just kind of on the ground with it, and I never really had my hand really. I had 4 children, had enough going on. They kept me informed. But the best thing that happened about our junior football program, and I think every successful high school program, if your feeder program does this, it's a great thing. I would tell them, they'd say, what offensive plays should we do, this and that? I said, if they can block and they can tackle and they love football, I don't care if they're 9-0. I don't care if they scored 100 touchdowns, because we all know kids grow. But if they love football and if they're fundamentally sound, everything else is great, and they want to play high school football. That's how I measured the junior program. And the guys that operated that understood it and did me, they were behind the scenes guys. They made Metamora football a big deal. They made those kids think, man, they get them to Friday night. Yeah, that's going to be you. And a little bit of that we drew on our tradition. We had a tradition long before I got there. I mean, as a player, you go back to Mr. Stromberger, who had several successful years there and really kind of got the first couple undefeated seasons, people excited, but this is pre-playoff stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the table and the enthusiasm for football was there. And then Coach Helmick, the second year of the playoffs, we won a state championship. So now all of a sudden there's, you could talk about winning the big one, but we had seen right in our own hometown the path. And back then It was really cool because they had playoff games on Wednesdays. The first round of the playoffs was Wednesday, and we got out of school to go see a playoff game at home. It was one of the greatest days.
Sure, absolutely. So I hear you talking about the Metamora program in the high school and then the feeder programs, and I'm hearing you use words like fun and love.
Yeah.
I'm with you. But I think that gets skipped. And I think that it's easy to say, but it doesn't always come out in the way that coaches operate, if that makes sense. Like it has to, I think it has to be a big part of it, or kids just won't play.
Yeah. And it's not the easiest. It's not the easiest. And, and that's one thing about our building here is that, I think there is a genuine love for one another. And I think our kids here do love to play. You got to love it. You got to love you got to love, being prepared through meetings and watching tape. You got to learn through, they have to be willing to accept some constructive criticism. How do you get better? And the other part of that is too, is that every kid is wired a little bit differently. Like
Absolutely.
I could take it. Like, get after me. It didn't bother me. I was going to come back because I love sports. I love football. I wanted to come back. Really, I don't know what they could have possibly, but not all kids are wired that way. They want to do it right, but they have to be coached a little bit different. And you don't guess right, but I think it's important. That's why you got to get to know kids as much as you can. And I taught freshman health, which I think was a huge asset from this standpoint. I had them all in class. I had some time outside of the football realm to actually get to know them, how they learned, how they interacted with other kids, and being in the building, sometimes you just follow them down the hallway. You can tell a lot, or you can tell a lot when you walk into the teacher's lounge to get your cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You can find out what kind of kid they are pretty quick just by.
Yeah. You don't want to stay in that teacher's lounge too long, but you want.
I usually, back in the old days when it wasn't direct deposit, you get in there and you grab your mail and you get the heck out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I love that idea. So one of the misnomers I think that I hear coaches sometimes when a kid comes in and they're like, well, they can't take criticism this way and they don't do this. They're not very tough. We don't really want that kid on our team. And I think it's such a disservice because like you said, not every kid is wired the same and handles it the same. And I feel like it's the job of a coach. Now, maybe at Illinois, when you're recruiting kids, you can do things differently. But if you're at a public institution, like kids come at you, they're different. They had different home lives. They have different genetics, both physically and mentally. And you have to learn how to deal with that and meet kids where they are. And that's not accommodating. That's just understanding that people are different.
That's exactly right. And I do think that's a strength of the head football coach here. I really believe that. I've seen it happen. And just to your point, there are expectations. I mean, it doesn't matter how you learn. If you're supposed to be at a certain time, you're supposed to be at a certain time. There's certain things that to run a successful program. But to your point, we're all wired differently. And whether it's Central Illinois different or all over the country different, you said it, everybody's got their own story, their own unique background, and they learn differently. They've had different experiences. Some guys have had, difficulties early on. Some guys haven't had to experience those kind of things. But that's why it is important to get to know people, keep the lines of communication, because sometimes even the good kids, they have things and they may not say, but ongoing communication, I think is you can't put a dollar sign on it. It's just invaluable. And even if it's a conversation that's hard, the best thing to do is have those conversations because, they're still moving things forward where at the moment it might seem a little bit tough. And I learned the hard way. Sometimes you avoid a conversation and you don't know what you don't know. And the next thing you know, you're trying to go back and fix something that could have been fixed way before it got expanded, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, that's the joy of coaching though, Matt. Like there's so much of that. And then you know what? Every once in a while you get to coach ball and you get to play games, but it's much bigger, especially at this level, beyond
so much bigger
anything I could have ever imagined. In fact, there isn't a week go by that I don't learn another facet about going. And I love to watch these guys teach. There's a reason why they're here because they're really good teachers, and to watch how they approach it and to watch a room full of coaches that don't coach the same, learn what their coaching style is and how they are successful with that. Because that's everything. The players have different personalities, but so do the coaches. Some guys are a little bit more enthusiastic. Some guys are a little bit more analytic. But when you get everybody in the same room and everybody has the same message, then you really get some things going.
Well, that's what makes a good teacher. We've all experienced that. We've had the teacher that just goes and puts information on a blackboard or on an overhead or whatever. And it's not really teaching. It's just saying this is what it should be. But teaching is meeting individuals where they are and helping them get those steps to get there. And that's what coaching is. Like I don't have a lot of patience for the coach that just says, well, this is what it is. You just have to do this, period. And doesn't have any leeway for understanding people are different or players are different. I just don't think you get a lot of success that way.
No, you're right. But you set your standards, right? Like
you have to have that. Yeah.
I'm a big advocate in my time. One of the things that I always felt was important, second chances are every young, especially kids that are 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. Second chances are a big deal. Everybody should get a chance to learn from their mistakes. Things I feel bad about with kids today is the mistakes are so much more magnified because social media can devastate a kid from one bad decision. And you can say that to kids, but man, I'd like to go back. I wish I could tell you, Matt, that when I was in high school, that I never made any bad decisions. I can't do that. And I was fortunate I had second chance opportunities to fix it. If you don't learn from it, then where it gets tricky for a coach, and I don't think this will ever change, is when you get to that third chance, you might as well get ready for the fourth and fifth because it's coming.
Yeah.
And I think there's always a long journey path back, but at some point the credibility, because what happens is you lose sight of the kids that show up and do it right every day. If you get too far,
you do.
And I said, this is a statement that I believe in. You want a minor in psychology. That's important. But if you got a major in psychology, that's a big step.
Because then it becomes the focus of everything.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. You have to understand why things are happening, but not let it be an excuse. It goes from a reason to an excuse is probably what it is. Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's talk developing these programs, developing these cultures, whether you're talking about at Metamora, Illinois, the love, the teaching, the coaching, even having fun. How do you see this all fit into developing what we would call mental toughness of a player? Because that's what I'm really so interested in. And how do we develop that mental toughness and these things that we've been talking about? How do you see it develop that mental toughness? And then how does it exhibit that mental toughness when it comes to, a state championship game, or when you're down, or when you have a tough moment?
Well, a couple of things I've learned since I've been here is the building a routine is extremely important. I think from that standpoint, because when you build a routine, regardless of what you're going through at the moment, that routine can help guide you through that. One of the things is for me, and that this is my view, part of that is spiritual, because life's going to come and go. Big games are going to come and go. The nights where, I was when I played basketball in high school, I was kind of a streaky shooter. I scored 40 points in one game, and the next game I came back, I was 1 for 16. So I think it was the lighting in the Morton gym, but that's for another day.
Clearly. Yeah.
But anyway, my point is, like, if you develop a routine, and coach talks about this all the time, that kind of helps guide you so that you're not getting caught in the weeds. Like, this is my routine. This is what I'm going to do. These are the things I'm going to do to take care of myself, and I'm going to do it every day. And I'm going to control every outcome that I can control. And there are some things that we know as we get older and mature, you can't control everything, but you can control how you react to everything.
Yeah, I think that I'm a big fan of preaching that to kids on controlling what you can, but then also understanding the knowledge that there are not only are there a lot of uncontrollables, but they're expected. Things are going to go wrong, and they should go wrong, or else we wouldn't be playing football, because that's the whole point. Things are going to go wrong, but having, yes, like you said, a process, and even if it's spiritual, even if it's how you work out, how you play, if you have something that you call as like, this is my true north, this is my process, this is what I'm going to do, that doesn't change when things go bad. That's what you lean into more when things go bad.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the game is, it's a funny, first of all, football, that ball it doesn't bounce straight back at you. I mean,
no.
You don't know. And I think preparation's important. I think you have to prepare for those moments. If you don't have preparation, then it gets all, like, I feel like for us, if it's into the game scenario and the games are close, I always feel like we're going to find a way to win, just because of how that we are prepared. Now, you put the ball on the ground, or you have this happens or that happens, things that, though it's really windy, occasionally in Champaign, it's really windy.
Yeah.
And, it can change the dynamics of a game a little bit. But that level of consistency and preparation can kind of eliminate some of those moments, and actually preparing for, hey, we just put the ball on the ground.
So I want to just take a quick shout out here. One of the ways I got hooked up with Pat Ryan here is I'm working at Metamora High School. Obviously after the fact that he was working there, but I'm there now working with the coaches at Metamora High School doing my Ember to Inferno program. It's my program helping coaches better understand some of this positive psychology that can help players, athletes, develop mental toughness in today's era and today's way. And just so thankful to be able in at Metamora. I just wanted to put in there that the programs that I do and working at schools like this that understand when Pat talks about the great administration he was there, I see that, I feel that, and when they have me come in because they really care about their coaches and their players, and bringing somebody like me in to work with their Ember to Inferno, with my Ember to Inferno program. And I love going in there, working with them and their athletes. I'm doing both, and it's just fantastic. So I'm throwing that out there to part of the way that I got hooked up with Pat Ryan. I also got hooked up through my brother, but I wanted to put that out there. That's one of the ways I got hooked up with Pat here. And it's a phenomenal program. And if you have any questions about my Ember to Inferno program, professional development for coaches, don't hesitate. Shoot me an email. If you're listening to this, a coach, and you're like, hey, I'm tired of professional development where I just sit in the back and turn on my computer and diagram plays. If you want something that actually helps you help athletes, give me a call, shoot me an email, and I'd love to talk to your administration about how I can get in and do my professional development specifically for coaches. I love doing it.
Now, going back as a high school coach, I think situational football, two things. If I went back as a high school football coach, which I'm not, situational football would have been more, I would have spent more time in practice on that, maybe a few less reps running off tackle, and more with situational football. But also with the recovery piece. We didn't know what we didn't know. I mean, that recovery piece, that last 10 minutes or whatever that piece looks like, I would have done that a little bit differently. But again, that's all preparations.
What do you mean by the recovery piece? Explain that.
Just physical recovery. I mean, we ran at the end because that's what we did. And, one of the first things that I learned when I got here was coach talked about drills and the importance of drills. And they had to be important. Like he was showing drills of why we were doing it, NFL guys doing the same drills, and then game situations where this is why. And then I had to go back and think, well, were there a couple of drills that I coached for a while that I did it because I learned the drill. And, it's back then it was 3 days. That's what we did. Well, you look back on that and you'd say, we drank water. We drank a lot of water. we were past that stage.
Yeah.
But anyway,
well, drills give a lot of confidence. Situation, like learning situation gives a lot of confidence. So like you said, that when this happens, I don't have to think. I just already know what I'm going to do.
Exactly. Hey, turn the ball over and you're deep in your territory. All the things that can happen in a football game, and good things too. Hey, we got to, and all that goes with that. Now, I'm definitely not involved in the game planning by any stretch. That's why we're having success. But I do think that, you see it, you see the process every week and just the clarity of what the mission is. And you gain confidence that way, that if the plan's all now, there's variables and you adjust.
Yeah. So talk to me about, because you're not in the game planning, which means you're in the recruiting and things like that. What is it about when you're looking at a recruit and you're looking at them, their program, like what are some things that stick out? Not necessarily how good they are at football, because they get on your radar because they're good at football. And it's then that you dive. What do you dive in that you see that you go, oh, this is good. I see this in this kid, or I see this good in a program, and I know this is a good thing. This is going to fit well for us at Illinois.
Yeah, you know what? Again, I think that's to answer that. I think the key piece of that is talking to the high school coach.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows how better to coach the kid than the guy that's coaching them, or as far as giving you information like this is where it's at. And sometimes they might tell you, hey, he had a rough go his first year, has really turned the corner, and sometimes it's an academic piece. I think, what I found out, like COVID, when we first got here, remember, we're just coming on the tail end of that. We were still testing every day just to get in the building, and it was, and the campus was closed. It was like I Am Legend out there. You look out there like there's supposed to be 60,000 people.
Don't remind. I've tried to forget all that stuff.
You're right. You're right, and I appreciate you saying that. But so going back to the high school coach and having them say, yeah, when we were doing remote learning, that it was just a kid. Maybe he didn't have the technology. All that went with that. So you can see progression, and they will tell you, boy, it really seems like he's got things turned around. He's changed as a person. We've seen growth. Where are you going to get that if you don't get it from the high school coach? Now, you might get it from a trainer, that's working with them. Yes, but the trainers, probably in a little bit more of a promotion mode, like the high school coach. But I think what I'm trying to say is I would start with the high school coach. And I ask kids, like if you went to just arbitrarily, if I went to your third hour teacher right now, what would they say about you? What kind of relationship do you have with your third hour teacher? And every once in a while I'll say, well, it's study hall. Okay, well, let's go to fourth hour. Yeah. But you see what I'm saying? Like, what relationships does a kid have within the building? People in the building know who the kid is.
So here's something that I picked up that I find fascinating. The first thing you said wasn't talking to the coach to figure out what this kid has or doesn't have and how it fits our program, but you talk to the coach to figure out what can I learn about this kid to teach him better? How can he be coached better? That's a different perspective than asking the coach, is this kid going to be a good fit because of A, B, C? No, you're asking, what's this kid like so that we know that we can reach them better. Did I get that right?
Well, yeah, I think that's part of the information that I need to gather up front. You're trying to put together a profile to know, the sibling factor, athletics in the family. And then so that when it actually gets to the position coach, they've got a little bit better understanding of, what's going on with the kid, just a little thing. Hey, maybe the dad played in the NFL, or this or that, just gather as much information. And I think that makes kids comfortable too. And it also shows interest. If you don't know anything about them, you never take the time to learn the family's names. You don't ask questions in that regard. I mean, these are just like, if you're really trying to get to know them, you've got to ask those questions and let them decide what you need to know and what you don't know.
Right.
I let them guide you through that. And sometimes initially, you got to be careful because some kids are just really initially very guarded.
Sure.
The process is very new to them. Maybe nobody in their family's ever been in the recruiting process, especially at this level, because it's very, the stakes are a little higher. Everybody realizes, college football is, as far as what's going on, is at an all-time high. Like people know all across the country what's going on where. There's just so much information.
It's life-changing.
Without a doubt.
For kids. It's for families.
And it's such a big decision. And I think I found this too, Matt. I think the good kids, it's easy for them to get to the point to say yes to the place that they ultimately decide to go.
Mm-hmm.
But it's much more difficult for them when they feel like, hey, there may be several schools that put together a pretty good pitch. So I can't go to all of them. So I have to tell these guys who have worked also as hard, and they'll learn a lot about those schools, about how they react from that. Do they continue to the relationship? And that's what you do. If so, there's a lot of moving parts with that. And believe me, I'm no expert in the 5 years I've been in. I'm literally learning every day.
No, but clearly, well, the same with you and Coach being there at Illinois. Like you guys you're learning, but you're having good results to it
Well, and
from
he's learned a lot. I mean, he's been at this level.
yeah.
He's worked with some phenomenal people, and
Oh,
and he knew what he wanted to be when he became a head coach. And again, I'm not speaking for him, but the results have spoken for themselves. He's a student of the game. He cares about people. I know who I work for, but I'm just so appreciative that I'm comfortable in my role now. Not to the point where I know I got to keep getting better at what I'm doing, but my point is, I'll just say this: in this building, the only pressure you feel is the pressure you put on yourself because you want to do a good job for the head football coach, not because you feel like he's looking over your shoulder, but I genuinely see what he's trying to do here.
yeah.
And how vested he is, not only as a coach, but as a person to person. And it's special. There's no doubt about it. What's going on here right now is special. And again, like 2 times in my life at Metamora, coming from that place where, I love it. I mean, it's always be home. There are people thought I moved because I think there are people I finally thought I was going to get out of Metamora, but I still live there. But this place is special too, man. I'm telling you, like, it's just, there's a vibe. And, we've had coaching changes. We've had people, come and go, move on. But one, he's just got a knack of pulling everybody together. And he's also got a knack to make sure that the right people come into the setting. So it's just been awesome. It's absolutely awesome to watch.
It's great. And it's what a great situation for you to be involved in. And I know what you're adding to it. So last question, Coach, I always ask, what's the question I didn't ask you that I should have? Like, what's the, what did I not dive into that you're like, oh, he probably should have asked me this?
No, I just, anytime I kind of go full circle and look at the time that I've had being around football, I've been very fortunate that I've always been around something that I truly enjoyed being around. Now, there were some Friday nights that didn't go very well, where, you just kind of lick your wounds, but you were always looking forward to come back to it again. And just being around the people, and I think another key to coaches, and I'll tell you this, I do know this, every good coach has a special wife. I'm telling you, it's a journey, and my wife supported me in every way. She didn't necessarily live and diet on Friday nights. She had great perspective, but I'm extremely grateful. I think it'd be very, very difficult because Nancy was going to be the same no matter whether we won or lost.
Yeah,
that you talked about consistency, building a routine. That helped me for so long. And then just the people that I were able to be around, that just by happenstance.
Yeah.
I mean, that I've been able to work with. And especially when the coaches started coming back that I had played for, the fact that they even wanted to go into coaching. Now, the one tricky part is when they show up for the other team and they beat you. That one, but a couple of times too.
It's got to feel a little bit good.
Not on that particular evening, but yeah. You're proud of them on down the road.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. No, it's great. I love talking to you. I can't thank you enough for coming in.
Enjoyed it.
I'm headed out. I'll be at Metamora tomorrow morning working with some coaches. So I love it whenever I get in there and I can say that I've talked to you and do stuff. And of course, Charlie, the principal, is just like, oh yeah, that's great. So I love those connections.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate all you're doing for your kids and your approach to the mental mettle. I think there's some true value, and everybody needs to find a better way. And sometimes it's not the bench press or the 40. It's much bigger than that. I was thinking about the questions you asked from the mental aspect. It's like, who are you? What kind of effort are you putting forth when there's nobody around you? That one, so not only is it the rough times that you got to work through mentally, but man, if things are going good, you can lose that edge pretty quickly too. So
yeah,
I said, I wasn't as good a coach as I thought I was when I had great players, and I wasn't as bad a coach as I thought I was when the talent level wasn't quite as good.
You and I talked about the process and how important the process is when things go bad, but it's just as important when things are going well, because we tend to, like, I have a good friend when we would work on some of this stuff, and he said, yeah, it worked so well, I quit doing it. And it's like, that's, and he's right. Like, we do.
It's funny you say it because it's true.
It's true, right? Like, we just like, oh, you quit recognizing the things that made you successful when you're successful.
Yeah.
And
no, you're right. And I mean, we're all, yeah.
We're human.
You want to do things better and you want to tweak things, but man, if it ain't broke and it's moving along pretty good, probably no sense in working on it too much.
No, I agree.
We've all, myself included.
I agree. Yeah. Coach, thank you so much. It's been a phenomenal interview, and thank you for
really
going in and taking the time. So
appreciate it.
Yep. So ILL.
INI.
You got it. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Your athlete probably spends hours working on the specific skill set they need for their sport. And they probably spend hours in the weight room building their body. But how much time do they spend intentionally training their mind? Well, building mindset is the key to bridging the gap between the skills that we see and game execution. Well, Mental Mettle Coaching provides individual programs that can help your athlete develop this third and crucial skill set.
If I was going to give one piece of advice from that episode, it would be this. Take his advice that says be the hardest working guy, and then make sure that you're applying that idea in the right way. I know a lot of football coaches that are easily probably the hardest working guys in their school and especially in their program. But I would ask, the advice would be to make sure that effort and that hard work is guided in the right way. You'll notice we didn't talk about X's and O's and all. And he even says that he talks about how relationship should come first and scheme second. He even talks about it looking down at the youth levels, and just, it's more about the fundamentals and the love of the game than it is in the X's and O's. And so when he talks about working really hard, yes, they schemed and they worked on X's and O's and they did all that. But I get the idea that his hard work is about building relationships and building love for the game and others, and, making sure that the expectations that you've created are being held up to, and not, tearing everybody down when they don't do it, but building that relationship. And he talks about having that, you don't have to have a major in psychology, but it needs to be a minor, and trying to spend his time working on reaching others and building up others and learning and all these things. It's not just, the hard work isn't necessarily just breaking down film and doing X's and O's. It's just this constant effort and work on building relationships, building your culture, setting your expectations, and holding people up to them. And that is work. It's work. It is, sometimes the X's and O's and the scheming feel like we get more done because we can say, I watch this film, I break this down, I have a plan, and it's very start finish type work. But the type of work he's talking about it's just continuous effort. And sometimes you don't get the huge payoff that you want. Like, there's a lot of times that you put effort into somebody and they just won't meet you, and it's not going the way you want. But that's where the hard work is so important, to just keep going, and keep working on it, keep learning, keep putting your standards there, keep working with the kids, keep building those relationships at every level with your kids, your admin, your parents, all these things, and really working on that. And that's a hard thing to do, and it's tiring, but I think that in the end, those are the sorts of results that you're going to really enjoy, that's going to have the most long-term payoff for you. It can and should eventually work on wins, but it's not necessarily. It's not even the end goal. The end goal, everybody wants to win. We get there, and Pat certainly did that at Metamora and working on that at Illinois, and they're doing a good job there. But he's doing it through building the relationships and building love for the game. And that is that's the advice I think I take from that, is just constant effort and constant work on building those relationships and that love for the game and love for the program and the culture. And I think that's something that's really going to pay dividends in your program. And that's my takeaway from this. And I just can't thank Pat enough for coming on. Hopefully that as a coach, even as a player or parent, you get this, that you're listening to this and picking up some stuff. But I hope you do. I hope you pick up little things that he says and does, and you add it to your mental playlist of ideas to add to it. And I hope you do all that. But my goal is that overall is that you understand that huge success, or any success, but even the huge success that Pat has had, comes from the things that we already know. It's building those relationships, and it's doing the little things, and it's caring for people, and it's loving on people. It's all those things. And it's just, it's what coaching should be. And I talk about this all the time when I talk about coaches. It's like, we need to be not just working with kids and families, but actually not for our benefit, but for their benefit, and building better people and helping them come out of there's a lot of people come into their sport, the kids that come in it with some baggage and literally some trauma and some things like this. And having a relationship filled with love and care and just a great relationship is so good mentally and ultimately physically for those players. I can't say enough about it. And I love talking about coaches and with coaches like Pat that did this and have just built great programs that have created great people. And I can't thank Pat enough for coming on the show. It's been fantastic. So if you like this episode, do me a huge favor here. Like it, share it, subscribe, go back to listen to some other episodes. Having this, I need the listeners to help me share it. So take a little bit of time, do me a favor, do something on social media or somewhere, just like, share, subscribe, do something, share it with somebody, do something. Just, if you listen to this, do that for me. Doesn't have to be this episode, could be an old episode, but help me out, do that for me, and I would really appreciate it. Doesn't take you a second. It helps me a lot. So thank you so much for everything, for listeners, guests, everything. It's been a great episode, and I'm really enjoying the podcast. It's going well. So thank you so much. But for now, this has been the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann, and always remember to forge your metal.
Thanks for listening to the Mental Mettle Podcast. Don't forget to tune in every week for more insights and strategies to help you forge mental toughness and resilience. This podcast is brought to you by Mental Mettle Coaching, where we are driven by a passion for sharing knowledge and experience that empowers others to play, live, and grow with confidence. Our mission is to instill a resilient and spirited mindset in our clients, enabling them to confidently face adversity and actively seek new challenges for personal growth. At Mental Mettle Coaching, we offer individual coaching, group coaching, and professional development for schools and businesses. Whether you're an athlete, educator, or professional, we're here to help you unlock your potential and thrive in every area of life. Until next time, keep growing, stay resilient, and always remember to forge your metal.